Okay, we start the show with Dennis Lauer. He is the CEO of Cortex. We'll want to explain what Cortex is in just a second, because while people have heard that, they may not know what it is. But first, I want to get your take. What is the state of innovation today?
Well, the state of innovation, I think, in St. Louis, in particular, and in Missouri, is on the rise. We're at a place now where, in the last 5 years, last 10 years, there's been an opening up, almost like a lotus flower. And with innovation, with all the companies, with all the ecosystem partners that we have, we are really poised not to be a flyover state anymore for technology, but to have people come, visit, stay, grow their companies here, and to be the next generation, the new generation of innovative companies in this region.
Your perspective, you've been here in St. Louis how long?
For 5 years.
So you're giving us an honest look.
Yeah, giving you an honest look. You know, as I came here 5 years ago, I began to understand that where we are today was based on what happened in the late 1990s and the early part of the last decade, where a lot of folks looked at the lack of translation of innovation into entrepreneurship, into the next generation of headquarters companies, and wanted to do something about it. Rather than licensing out the technology coming from our great universities and our great regional corporations, there was a desire to want to capture that economic benefit and grow it here. That doesn't happen overnight. And so for a decade or more, civic leaders, institutional leaders, corporate leaders began to really focus on building the environment in which we could plant and grow companies that would take root here and stay here. And that's what we're harvesting now. In the last 5 years, there's been an explosion of entrepreneurship, taking that technology and pushing it toward the market and beginning to grow it here. We're not going to capture all of it. A lot of it will leave, but some of it's going to stick. And the more that sticks, the more generations of new companies come out of that until we grow the region.
Which is what Cortex is in the business of. Tell us what Cortex, you're the CEO of Cortex. Does Cortex have a product?
Cortex is really a platform. Cortex is a place. It's a place with assets around it. And what Cortex is attempting to do is to leverage the institutional and academic assets that we have, the cultural assets that we have, in the museums, in Forest Park, in the recreational assets, Grand Center, the great neighborhoods, trying to create a live, work, learn, play environment to capture and hold the younger workforce that's coming into the science and technology jobs that we have. So what Cortex is doing is creating a special place where people can interact, where people can accelerate company formation. We are trying to drive density because where there is density of entrepreneurs, where there is density of innovation, company formation happens very quickly. So it's an open innovation system. It's an environment where creative people are coming together from all different disciplines, together with researchers and scientists, and bumping into each other. And from those collisions emerge new companies.
And those collisions are happening in a space that's just over here on Forest Park Boulevard.
Right. It's about a 200-acre area.
More than one building.
Yes, it's a campus of buildings that we're developing. But when we think of, we've rebranded ourselves as the Cortex Innovation Community. It's not about the buildings. It's about all of the energy in the buildings. The buildings just hold the energy, hold the innovation, hold the creativity. So what we're trying to do is to create a large campus that reaches into the community. It's as important for us to have people living in the neighborhoods and being able to walk to work or bike to work, come early, stay late. So we're developing restaurants within the district, fitness centers, some residential components, as well as the technology buildings. So we're trying to create a neighborhood of innovation, a community of innovation.
How different is that, or how much does it relate to the 45 years ago when McDonnell Douglas was doing the Gemini project and contributing to the space race?
It's in stark contrast to 45 years ago, to 35 years ago, to 25 years ago, and even to a decade ago. Research parks over the last 40 years have really been suburban, basically. You think of Triangle Research Park, you think of Silicon Valley, which is a long suburban building after building after building, not in urban centers per se. And what's happened in the last decade is a migration back to the city of the workforce, the academic institutions in the city beginning to invest in the city and pull the benefits from the city into innovation to create these innovative communities. And that's in stark contrast to the business parks that were in greenfields, where people went into buildings, they drove, parked their car, went into buildings, stayed all day, got in their car, and went to a third place somewhere else. What we're trying to do with Cortex and what is happening in the urban innovation community movement across the country and actually globally is that people are coming, they're living close by, they're coming to work, they're leaving work and walking to the third place where they're socializing, where they're bumping into people, where they're bumping into coworkers and people from other companies. And it's in that close proximity where innovation is now happening at an accelerated pace. So in a way, we're trying to orchestrate it, but in a way, it needs to be totally serendipitous.
Does that mean different people, different institutions are responsible for innovations today versus the McDonnell Douglas or the Bell Labs? There have been books written about all the innovations that came out of that business. Now you're talking about individuals who want to live in a city and need to bump up against each other. Do big companies still have a huge role to play in this?
They certainly do, but we are seeing a change from the total vertical integration, where a company is entirely isolated and develops the product from inception and takes it all the way through to the marketplace. We're seeing much more horizontal reaching out by large corporations and licensing in and buying companies after they have been quick to either succeed or fail. And if they're succeeding, then they're bought and brought into the company. We're also seeing a phenomenon of large companies beginning to reach out and establish outposts to get outside the corporate culture so that innovation can happen faster. Because when you're in a large company, you're going from big to bigger. When you're in an innovation company, you're going from small, hopefully, to big. And the culture is different. The environment is different. One is sustaining, the other is innovating. And trying to do innovation and entrepreneurship within a large corporation is challenging. It's being done, but it's challenging. And so new ways are emerging for large companies to acquire innovative technologies, because all large companies have to innovate or they're going to die.
What does St. Louis need to continue, or if it is on the track of innovation that you think it is, what would you like to see happen, whether it be from a governmental side or from a private investment side, or anything, if you could wave a magic wand?
So innovation systems are comprised of a lot of variables, a lot of components that all have to be present, and we have a lot of those. We have great educational institutions creating a very good workforce. We have great research. We have great corporations that surround these academic institutions. An important ingredient that is still emerging and is still not as robust as it needs to be in St. Louis is venture capital. We have a lot of early stage capital, much more now than we've ever had in the history of the last 10 to 20 years here in St. Louis. We have some modest Series A and Series B round follow-on funding, but what St. Louis really needs now is a large bolus of that follow-on funding that'll take a technology from prototyping all the way through to the marketplace. We do still lose companies once we grow them to a certain point and they need a $5 or $10 or $20 million bolus of funding. That's difficult for us to put together here. And we either have to embed that capital and have it present, or we have to be able to connect better to the coasts and to other marketplaces that have larger capital sources and larger venture funds. We need to do both of those things.